Hi, everyone. Harry here to bring you up to the minute on what's going on with the lawsuit that California has filed against the administration for its federalization of the National Guard there and what they say is their intent to combine them with Marine forces in order to, as the administration says, support their ICE operations and keep the peace. Okay, you've been following on TV, I'm sure, although it's a little hard to know. We get different renditions depending on who's giving them. It's like the famous movie with telling each scenario from the point of view of one at a time. Is it total bedlam and out of control? You certainly see some violent episodes, people throwing big rocks and the like. Is it almost all peaceful? You certainly see that as well. California's basic position is, look, this is not some outright rebellion along the lines of, say, the 1992 riots after the Rodney King trial. It's a civil disturbance. Police officers and state authorities handle those all the time. We are handling it all the time. What has made things escalate and turned it into a national focus is precisely the inflammatory sending of these federal troops in. Trump is manufacturing a crisis where none exists, basically because that's his authoritarian way. So they bring a lawsuit in the Northern District of California. It's a federal system, so you can bring it in the Northern. There are 4 districts in California. And they ask for immediate injunction, a temporary restraining order saying, stop doing this. Okay, stop doing what exactly? Because right now, the administration has taken one giant step, but not a second, even though the second one seems, potentially in the air. These two are typically done in tandem, but so far they have not done. What they have done is use Title 10, Section 12406, and that's a provision intended to protect federal property and personnel when when there's an outright rebellion going on in a state. So they're saying there's a rebellion here, and we have federalized the National Guard. That's what that title permits. All the National Guard that are normally there to do, say, local reclamations or little disasters or whatever they can do. There's no limits on them on federal state law. The feds come and say, you work for us now, and you're now here to protect federal property and personnel. So he has, Trump federalized the National Guard of California under the ostensible authority of Section 12406 of Title 10. Now, all they can do is protect federal property and personnel, so they can't generally exercise domestic law enforcement powers. They can't arrest, they can't search, they can't seize. But that's a very tricky situation on the ground because we don't have trained National Guard. They're just the people who are there for the National Guard, and how it will actually work out on the ground is tricky. But California's saying you can't do this because there's not a rebellion, and you need to have a rebellion. That's what the statute says. It says a few things, but that's your only chance. Moreover, the statute also has a provision that says you're supposed to at least inform and notify the governor. You did nothing of the sort. We have a classic Trump situation where he says, he told this to Newsom, and Newsom said, I mean, we didn't even get a voicemail, that there was no information given at all. So they sue before Judge Breyer and say, put the brakes on this immediately, and Breyer declines. What he does instead is impose a very, very fast briefing schedule. So the California authorities did theirs yesterday. The feds is due today, Wednesday. The reply, if any, from California Thursday, and a hearing Thursday. So at least the motion for a temporary restraining order is going to play out very quickly. Although, of course, as always with the Trump administration, you then have to think about they're going for emergency relief if they don't win. Let me size up the merits just briefly. First of all, Breyer, may I say, he's a senior judge. He's actually Justice Breyer's brother. He's well regarded, thoughtful, careful, and the like. I don't think he'll be wild-eyed in favor of either side. But I think what this may be coming down to, there is that little procedural hook where he could say you didn't inform them. It's hard to see that stopping all the music. Now Newsom knows it, and so, you could call it no harm, no foul. I think the crux of the matter is going to be, is this a rebellion or isn't it? And on the one hand, man, it does not look like a rebellion of years past. It really looks like a skirmish, scuffle, and and it is, by the way, getting somewhat worse. I think that really is because the Trump administration has federalized these National Guard troops, but doesn't seem to fit a common sense reading of the definition of rebellion as California puts in its brief, an attempt to overthrow the government and the like. But, and this is going to figure in very heavily in all of these efforts to use military force, which we seem to have embarked on, the courts may well say it's up to the president to decide. We are not going to second guess him. If he says it's a rebellion, it's a rebellion. And you can imagine what's going through courts' minds if they say we're the ones who decide, and here comes some kind of conflagration. Isn't it? How is a court to really know when the stakes could be quite high? On the other hand, of course, everybody knows that Trump is completely prone to exaggeration. Let's just call it lies when it comes to do with assertions of emergency powers like this. So it may be some kind of way that the courts will be pushing to, figure out something, as they've done, notice, in the Alien Enemies Act area, where they don't just defer to Trump on whether there is an invasion or an insurgency by a foreign country. So that, I think, is going to be the pivotal issue. This is a very unusual use of this authority. When it's been done in the past, in almost all instances, it's because the governor has said, please come on in. That's what happened, say, in 1992. Without a doubt, it's extremely unusual, and I think there's a very strong argument this isn't the kind of situation it's meant to apply to. But will the administration be able to argue successfully? You can't make that final call, court. You've got to defer to us. That's what's on the line. So very, very quick briefing, very quick turnaround, probably a decision from Judge Breyer by Thursday, tomorrow, as to whether or not to grant a TRO. And in the meantime, the conflagration develops on the ground. Just one more thing to note. This is not yet about the Insurrection Act. Trump has not invoked it, so California hasn't directly challenged it. They've said in their papers he's looking to do this, and he's looking to go from state to state. Nothing about the order limits it to Los Angeles, and that's true. But of course, courts deal only with controversies that have actually developed and are out there. So I think those points are for atmosphere. They're not really ripe for Breyer to decide. So Breyer is going to decide, do I give immediate relief to put the brakes on while I decide the overall legality of the administration's federalization of the National Guard in order to protect federal property and personnel, because we have a rebellion or a situation where I have to defer and say the president has proclaimed we have a rebellion, so that's the end of the story. Talk to you later.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.